Ahead of the 2023 elections, let's discuss what we all need to know about the 2022 Electoral Act and things that need to be done by the politicians, the political parties, you, the citizen, and the electoral umpire, INEC. Please, in no particular order. And as you've seen, Mike Igini joins us this morning. He is a former INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ayo, for having me, and my very good friend. Of course, good morning, Nigerians, and happy independence.
It feels a little strange to call you former right now.
So what?
It feels a little strange to call you former INEC resident electoral commissioner.
Having been rec for so many years. Congratulations on your retirement, by the way.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Igini.
And also an opportunity to thank Channels Television, our chairman, John Momo, and the entire crew for the privilege of having the channels cover the farewell ceremony at Akwa Ibom, and including your sister station, AIT, and Arise Television. I'm very grateful to all of you. No greater honor will a station like Channel accord the people of Akwa Ibom State for what we did collectively together. So thank you.
We're newsmen, so we cover the news.
Sure.
But, you know, you began earlier, I mean, just before we came on air, saying Nigeria on the march again. And I said to you, the last time I really heard that resonate was in 1993.
Yes.
Any similarities between then and now?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, indeed. What gives spice and piquancy to the practice of democracy? So when you see the people showing interest, enthusiasm to be part of the process. Because if you look at the chapter 2 of the Constitution, the fundamental objectives and directive principle of state policy, section 14(2)(a), it says clearly that power belongs to the people, and that sovereignty belongs to the people through which legitimate power is derived. So you know that every election, a citizen will donate, surrender part of his sovereignty to a body of persons to administer public affairs. Now, when you now have a new election, that becomes an opportunity for the citizen to exercise what you call their residual sovereignty, to make a choice who becomes what. What is interesting here, having regard to the kind of apathy in 2011, 30-something%, 2015, 30%, 2011 was 39%, 2015 was 39%, 2019 was 28% voters turnout. So when you look at the enthusiasm as reflected in the INEC register before we left the system, you cannot but say that what you are seeing happening now is something close, or rather June 12th is something getting close to what we are having now, because the number of registrations that the Commission has put out before we left the system is quite enormous.
No,
that means that truly, like Ghanaians did some times ago, that with our votes, we change the history of Ghana. That was how they started in Ghana. I can see something like that happening, and more so, the numbers of candidates that have emerged across board.
Well, it's not the first time really we're having all of these numbers and all of that. And as you rightly said, the average percentage of voters we've had since 1999 has been 30%, sometimes more, sometimes less, and all of that. But you spoke to powers the other time. Historically, people have believed that, you know, any time the election is coming, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has enormous powers across board, including over the electoral umpire. But then there's an indication in section 160 of the Constitution that talks about the fact that INEC has so much powers that the president cannot control it. Enforcing that's a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, that speaks to the position of the place of the rule of law in our practice democracy. You see, democracy is often qualified with the expression the rule of law. The Athenians, they gave us the word democracy. They didn't give us a model. It is the Western world that brought the concept of the rule of law. And the rule of law is very key. And at the heart of our problem in our country is the absence of rule of law in all the things that we do. We now have a country where some people feel that they are above the law. And without the rule of law, adherence to the rule of law, electoral contests will be nothing but a crude contest in the deployment of force. So the place of the rule of law is very important. Now this country is preparing, in the next 4 months, we are going for elections. As the former commissioner of INEC, having spent 10 years in the service of the fatherland, I want to make it very clear that I still remain, as a private person, I must maintain that disposition as an umpire. My contribution in the next few days, few weeks, and months of the election is to join Nigerians to explain specific provision of the 2022 Electoral Act. There are one or two I will never mention. I will never mention. Because those provisions, they act as a shield to the process and also as a sword against those who want to undermine the process. It is when we get to the point of the Philippi that we will mention those ones. But what I can say...
So are you going to lead the process to invoke that aspect of the electoral law, should in case it's abused by those that you're talking about?
Yes.
In order to bring them to accountability.
What we can do with respect to that provision, which I will never mention. People can go and find it out.
It's not that it's hidden.
It's not hidden. It's there. But don't forget that this electoral act, and we must give commendation to the National Assembly and the President for signing this and putting it in place. Because right now, I can tell you, what people are faced with right now, there are people who are regretting, who feel that the 2022 Electoral Act is possible to roll it back, it should be rolled back. INEC innovation should be rolled back. But regrettably, you cannot abort a pregnancy that has been delivered. This is where we are. Now, the current act that you have, well, a combination of the efforts from Jega's time, where we've been making proposals that the system has been very reluctant to approve. And that's why we give the current National Assembly that they have a place in history for doing what they have done. That's making some of us very happy, making Nigeria, all of you smiling right now. And by the time we go to the nitty-gritty, you will see that power is reborn in Nigerian people.
You haven't answered.
We are return power to you.
Are you going
I am asking that. I'm coming to that. But just to give you a background to that, and why I don't want to mention it, is that the current act has 9 parts, a total of 153 provisions. The commission, following all the various proposals put together, sent to the National Assembly over 91 proposals. The National Assembly graciously accepted over 48. These 48 provisions, including the one I will not mention, that is there, acting as a shield and as a sword, all right, are one of the provisions to safeguard the vote of the Nigerian people. So what I want to do is that, oh, I've heard about, oh, you have retired and so on and so forth. No, a young man like me, who have not spent 35 years in the service of the fatherland, only 10 years, or have not attained the age of 60 and far, far below the age of 60, you cannot be talking about retirement when we have
obviously you don't want to answer Bukola's question yet.
So the question is,
let's hear him.
Bukola's question,
yes,
as to that provision, all I want to say about the provision is that
will you be leading the charge to enforce it?
Oh, sure.
That's the question.
Oh, okay. That is the education we are going to give.
Okay, so
that's what we are going to be involved in right now.
So as a member of the civil society, after the 2023 elections, are you going to be leading the charge to invoke it, to bring those who abuse it to account?
First and foremost.
Yes or no?
No, first and foremost, that provision is going to be integrated in INEC training. INEC know what I'm talking about here. All right? But what you should know, we should avoid information overload. But what the people should know, election riggers who are thinking of trying to rig election, let me just tell you, you can't do anything. that provision, if you think that you are a supporter of a candidate, or you are a candidate, either House of Assembly, House of Rep, Senatorial, Governorship, or Presidential, and you think that in your domain, you are in control, you can do anything, unfortunate for you, you are going to lose your election.
Let's talk about the ones.
So that provision is so beautiful.
Let's talk about the provisions you can talk about.
Yes,
or you want to talk about.
Sure.
At this point. So what are some of these ones that we don't know or that we've been ignorant about? We mentioned Section 160, for instance.
Yes. But first and foremost, I mean, just to take off from where you started, and is that the success of any election around the world is a multi-stakeholder responsibility. As you will see from what I call the election day pyramid. The duty of INEC, judiciary, security, political parties, candidates, citizens, media, and civil society. But of all these key stakeholders, three are very, very key, which are the umpire itself, that will be on the driver's seat. Then the judiciary, and of course, security. The trinity of these three agencies of states will take Nigeria to a different level when it comes to the issue of elections. But as a starting point, we all have a duty to obey the provision of the Constitution, which is at the heart of our problem, the Electoral Act, regulations, and guidelines of INEC.
You mentioned the electoral pyramid on the screen now.
Yes.
Speak to it, Chris.
That is the election pyramid. Now, what this pyramid shows to you is that in the final analysis, like previous elections, the outcome of 2023 election will be a reflection of our collective values of who we are. Because if you look at the top, the first three lines you see there, the INEC headquarters in Abuja, they prepared, which is what they are doing right now, making arrangements for the elections. Thereafter, all the materials will be taken to the state. That is at the level of the REC. Then from the REC, you go to the local government. That is at the level of what we call the EO. From the red column down, you find out that it is Nigerians who are not members of INEC that are going to be involved from these stages of SPO, of course, barring the new regime, to have INEC staff to be in charge of that sensitive position of what they call the SPO, supervising presiding officer, who are going to hand over the ballot paper and the result sheet to the presiding officer.
Is that a new provision in the law? The supervisory presiding?
No, it has already been there.
Okay.
It has already been there. So you find out that the entire pyramid, that majority of the people, 99% of people who administer this election are Nigerians who are not actually INEC. How many people do we have in INEC? For example, in Akwa Ibom, we have just about 500 and something staff. But to conduct the election, we deploy 20,048. So the outcome of election, whether good or bad, is a reflection of our collective value. That is what that pyramid speaks about.
When you go further down on the pyramid, you find registration area collation officers,
Correct.
local government collation returning
Correct.
officers, state collation returning officers.
Correct.
I'd like you to provide a bit more clarification on this aspect. The reason I ask is this: why is the collation officer or center, as the case may be, still relevant if we now have electronic transmission of results? I would imagine that from the polling unit, when votes have been counted, collated, that then onward is transmission uploading into the INEC portal. So why do we still have this state collation officers?
Thank you. Very good question. The starting point in answering your question, and for Nigerians, is that whatever you hear about, whatever that has been, people have talked about, some of which we addressed today, like the Conference of United, I was outside the country, political parties.
CUPP,
CUPP, all right? All of those issues that have been addressed, which we are going to speak to quickly here, is that Nigerians don't be worried at all. the 2022 Electoral Act has made the polling unit the center of universe. And so what is being done is speaking to the question you asked. For the accreditation process, we are doing what we call bimodal. INEC now do what we call bimodal accreditation process. The collation of results is also bimodal. It's a dual system.
Okay.
By virtue of Section 60 of the 2022 Electoral Act, a presiding officer at the end of the poll is expected to record on the form EC8A the scores of political parties. He or she will sign, stamp, party agent, countersign. All right? Then thereafter announce the scores. Then upload to the cloud. The act use the word transfer. People also say transmission. What the INEC does is to upload to the cloud. Now, when you upload to the cloud, all right, straight to the IREV, people can view it, can see it. Then the duplicate will be given. I am a presiding officer. At the end of the poll, I will give you the party agent a duplicate of the form EC8 original. I will give you a duplicate. I will from 60E, the people's from EC8 will be pasted. And that's why Nigerians should not be worried about some of the things we hear about. The hope is reborn in you. You will decide who becomes what anywhere. Now, once that is done, in answering that layers and all that, and that is to speak to us an issue that was raised about hacking. Now, one interesting thing you must know there is this. Today, any one of you where you are, you listen to me watching this, take your your phone. Try and send an SMS. Put your phone on airplane mode. If you send it, what it is sent, it will not be able to deliver. But you cannot retrieve it. The moment you remove it from airplane mode, it will be delivered without even records to you. That is what INEC does. So who is going to use the ladder? Going to climb. But I don't want to, let me just take a trail of thought to get to the point she's making.
Yes.
Now, once it's been uploaded, in line with Section 60, now the presiding officer is expected to carry the original. This is the second leg. That's why it's a dual process. He must carry the original or the form EC8A. Now, let's revert the role again. You are now the work relation officer.
Okay.
You are the local government relation officer. I am the presiding officer. Interestingly, unlike in previous years, which is the reason why some people are already going to court to want to stop the beavers, all right, where before I come to you, you have to be waiting for me. You will know what has happened here. Now, Ayo, as the work relation officer, he doesn't have to speak to me. He would have seen the result because he has access to see the result already without talking to me. Woe betide not me now. Any corrupt person who is now coming to you with a result contrary to what he has seen. He doesn't need to talk to you. You don't need to talk to him. You don't need to talk to me. The fact that you know that, the fact that I know that you have seen the result, that is the greatest deterrent that we have to. So before I get to him, the result will be snatched, it will be uttered, or when they get to the work relation center, the party agent of political party will be chased away. That's where they will now do the mutilation. Right now, the polling unit is not. So when you get to the work relation officer, that's the question you are asking another. This is the second leg. Now, Section 64, you can put it out there for Nigerians to see that power has been returned to you. That's why there's border panic in the land. There's panic in the land. People want to roll back the 2022 Electoral Act. The National Assembly will not do so. It will be contrary to public policy. So the point here is that.
So this is Section 64.
64.
Yeah.
Subsection 4. Now you could read it up there. Once you get you are now the work relation officer. Before you collate, you must ensure that the number of accredited voters on the result sheet presented to you must be consistent, must not be at variance with what has been recorded at the polling unit and has been transmitted or uploaded. It must be the same. That is section 64, subsection 4. Nigeria can read it there. Now, every stage of the process is now accountable. Why I commend the National Assembly for what they have done is that all these things the procedure we are talking about, they have been there for a long time. We've been piloting them, but they have not been secured by the law. This is where we are.
Okay. Well, there are a number of other issues to raise. Yeah. Let's see how much of it we can take within the next 10, 15 minutes that we have more after this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Well, Bukola, you have a question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ayo. I'd like you to react to the concerns raised by the CUPP in Imo State, particularly about a compromised INEC register where you have strange names not peculiar to that region and irregularity in gender.
Well, thank you very much. I was outside the country when that conference was granted. First, I think that the statement issued by the commission was a very good one. It was not dismissive, but to explain to Nigerians. And for people like us who have worked in the system and those who are in the system, we know that nothing will come out of those plans. But we commend the vigilance of the group for saying that. Now, what we need to know here is this. As we speak, there are people who are very, very uncomfortable with the 2022 Electoral Act. And also with the innovations of INEC. Because you see, we innovate, we reform. But there have not been a reform of the behavior of the members of the political class to complement the reforms of INEC. This is the challenge we are facing now. With respect to issue about register, as rightly explained by the commission, INEC has advanced to a level where, for example, the current registration that ended before I left office, they were done by INEC staff. And it must be done on your personal ID. Any registration that is irregular is traceable. In fact, I give you an example from Akwa Ibom. There was wrong registration at Okanafon. The commission didn't talk to me first. From the back end, in the 36 states of the Federation, they monitor everything. We are not talking about, these are not UCOPAs, INEC staff. So, once they saw what was going on, Abuja immediately stopped that process from the back end. And my attention was called to it. You recall that the registration of 2021, when INEC was through with the advanced automatic biometric identification system, almost half of that was gone. Remember, before the Anambra election, well over 70,000 ineligible registration and multiple registration were weeded out because the system INEC has now took account of the entire 36 state. So, the issue raised, all those names, you can generate names even from outside Nigeria. But can you generate the biometric?
You say INEC's explanation is satisfactory, but yes, really in addressing it, shouldn't INEC have told the world how those names got there in the first place, not say that they're still reconciling with the bimodal accreditation system? That doesn't address it.
Yes. You see, I can say this here, that in every system, I mean, you could put out something there. There's a director, almost the rank of a director in 2019, who had pictures. And I've sent it to you people, you can put that out there. Pictures. Like he went to a photographer shop and got pictures and all that. They try to do things like that.
Okay.
What is important is the capacity of the system to detect. And the reason why people now want to go to court to remove beavers, it will return us to manual process.
Well,
we cannot go back to manual process.
We could go. There
So
are a couple
INEC
of
will
questions.
detect that,
Yeah, Mr.
and it has done that across the country.
It's too many questions to ask, but because the issue of the beavers is something, and I hope this is what Chamberlain is trying to speak to now. Chamberlain.
Well, morning, Mr. Igini. There are some CSOs who have some concern about the voter register. So, leveraging on Section 19 of the 2022 Electoral Act and some of the issues that have been raised previously. Now, some of them ask that, because we have some officials of INEC, even those behind the scenes, think that it will be difficult to meet the request of the CSOs who are asking for an electronic version of the voter register. Is it against the law? Is it out of place for INEC to make that possible, either publishing it on their website or some sort of electronic communication to have that version so people can equally access it, since we're talking about beavers now?
Chamberlain, I think that same Section 19 that you reference also made it clear that when INEC shall have completed the process of the cleanup by integrating the ongoing last phase of registration to what we had before, all right, the register will be made available to political parties. All right? That is what the law has also provided. And of course, our partners, but before that, I think what is even more important is that under Section 19, the preliminary voter register will be pasted in all the wards for objections and claims. That's why the CUPP press conference, actually comes here, because the system is designed in a partnership way that the cities have a role to play. The purpose of printing and putting in the wards local government is for the people in that area to identify by way of objecting to names that they would have seen there, all right, who are not supposed to be part of that community. That's the essence. It is after that objection that the register will be printed and will be made available to all political parties. And I think that at that time, even the CSO will also be there available. And of course, it's there that you must have it in electronic format. It's under Section 19.
Okay, well, I'm assuming, right now that, because part of the question that I believe that Chamberlain asked was, look, can the register be available electronically for the voter themselves to see?
Yes.
Of course. I mean, look at Section 19. You got to look at it. There's a provision for that
because
there.
What you said,
but
that
what
it
is
will be posted, it will be printed
yes.
on the wall and all, but there is no way people can access it to see, to view the...
No. You see, when you see the electoral act is designed in such a way that it's in an inclusive system. It takes all those of you who have access to internet, you can use your telephone to do that. The majority of Nigerians who are in the rural areas don't have access to that. And that's why the law requires that those copies should be printed at the polling at the wards.
We get that, and that's been the standard over the years. So the question is, can it be available electronically for people to view as well? Well, you said that there are a number of people in the rural areas, and that is correct.
Yes.
But there are at least 140 million connected lines in this country. So people, that's a sizable number of people who can view this electronically.
That cannot be a problem because it's given in PDF format.
Is it available now?
Right now, I am out of the system. There are questions that the system can answer.
Okay.
But by practice and procedure.
But can you answer this, Mr. Igini, leveraging on Section 19 also? He said, shall not later than 90 days to a general election appoint a period of 7 days during which a copy of the voters' register for each local government, area council or ward shall be displayed or published. 90 days... appoint a period of 7 days. Clarify what that means. But then again, isn't that time frame rather too short? For instance, if the civil society or the people themselves have concerns to raise about the register for which INEC needs to address, a 90-day time frame is short.
No, the 90 days is for the register, not less than 90 days, not exactly 90 days, for the register to be ready to begin political party preparatory for election. But the section we refer to is to address concerns raised by the CUPP, which is being a standard procedure. that once you've done registration, you have to go and produce. That's why INEC was talking about having to close to enable, to account for this timeline that are statutory to be observed. That within this period, all right, people should go to their wards to check. That is what is being done.
That same section 19, as you can see on the screen now, says people should be able to view it on INEC's official website or any website established.
So, for instance,
of course, it will be there. I said so.
But the question is it available now?
No, right now, I know that the process of the ABIS is ongoing. If you recall the press release I read when I was out in the country, was to the effect that even the area that the CU people referred to, over 3,000, which is an ongoing process, have been removed.
So, for instance, there were many concerns like that of the CUPP in like 10 states of the Federation, and INEC is releasing it in December, just 90 days to the election. The time frame is short to address those concerns.
No, the 90 days too. The 90 is a different thing altogether. Is INEC, once they are done with the ABIS, all right, it is the time for the purpose of this exercise is different from that timeline.
Okay.
For people to see. It's a different time.
Okay. Well, again, there are too many questions to ask you, but as I said earlier, we're completely out of time because there are those who are still saying, look, yeah, you talked about beavers or showing election is something that gives us an example. Someone needs to take a third party needs to take a second look at beavers to assure us that we will not have the same experience we've had before where the elections were stopped because of one reason or the other. But we can't address all of that now. We have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Mike Igini is a former INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Thank you again for your time. We hope to have you back real soon to continue this education.
Thank you.
Well, there is more after this short break. Please stay with us.